All right, so today we are diving into life with autism. This book really gives us a unique perspective, huh?
It really does. I mean, to see the world through the eyes of someone with autism,
It's eye-opening, to say the least.
yeah, and this book does a fantastic job through the character of Hunter.
Right, Hunter. And he's going through, the assessments, the diagnosis. You really get a sense of how overwhelming all that is, especially for a child.
Especially for a child. And the book doesn't shy away from depicting that, like that scene at the clinic, the way those bright colors and the sterile environment, how it all just kind of...
Adds to the sensory overload.
Exactly. It just compounds the feeling of being overwhelmed.
And you see the impact not just on Hunter, but on his family as well. His mom, especially, seems to reach a breaking point in the book. And it really underscores the emotional toll this takes on families.
It's a heavy burden to carry, for sure. And speaking of burdens, school is a whole other challenge for Hunter.
Oh, absolutely. It's like navigating a world that wasn't built for you. The sensory overload alone is overwhelming, right?
Absolutely. Think about it. The fluorescent lights, the scratchy clothes, the cacophony of the classroom. These are things that many of us probably don't even register, but for someone like Hunter, they can be incredibly distracting and even painful. It's what we call sensory processing disorder, which goes hand in hand with autism a lot of times.
And that's not even getting into the social aspect, like his interactions with Mrs. Santrock, his teacher. You can tell she's trying, but there's still this disconnect.
It highlights this gap, right? That even well-intentioned people, they don't always know how to interact or connect with someone with autism.
And then there are those behavioral episodes. I mean, there's that part where Hunter throws a chair across the room.
Yeah, that was intense. But the book challenges us to see these episodes not just as acting out, but as a form of communication. Like, this is Hunter's way of expressing his frustration, his inability to cope in that moment.
It's a cry for help, really. But there is a glimmer of hope, right?
Yeah.
Because things start to look up for Hunter when he's moved to a more structured learning environment.
Right. This new classroom, it's designed with neurodiversity in mind, so they understand and accommodate different learning styles and sensory needs. And we see how Hunter thrives in this setting.
Even the small victories, like engaging with another classmate or just getting through lunch without a meltdown, they become these huge milestones.
Exactly. It's like all those little things we take for granted, they become these really significant achievements for Hunter. And this really underscores the importance of creating inclusive environments that celebrate those differences. We see that, friendship and acceptance, they have this really transformative power.
It's a powerful message. And speaking of powerful messages, I really appreciated the epilogue. It offers practical tips on befriending someone with autism.
It's like a little guidebook for empathy, which honestly we could all use a little more of in this world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really gets you thinking, if we all stopped for a second and tried to see the world through Hunter's eyes, how would that change our perceptions?
How would it change how we interact with the world around us, with each other? Really something to think about.
Food for thought, for sure.
Ever feel like you're navigating a world that just doesn't quite make sense? Where your senses are on overdrive and the way other people communicate feels like a puzzle?
It can be hard to grasp, right?
Yeah, and that's the day-to-day for many people with autism spectrum disorder. So we're really getting this insider's view of what it's like to navigate the world, and especially school, with ASD.
Which is so important because so often we talk about ASD from like a clinical standpoint, but this is about understanding the actual lived experience,
Right. And it's that personal touch that really makes this source so impactful. It's written as a message of hope and support for families, and we follow Hunter from that initial diagnosis through all the ups and downs of school.
And that's where it gets really insightful, right? Because school is where so many challenges and triumphs happen for kids, and this source really digs into that.
It does. Like, one thing that really stuck with me was Hunter's description of sensory overload in art class. For most kids, art class is exciting. But for Hunter, the bright colors, the different textures, it wasn't just something he disliked, it was completely overwhelming for him.
Right, and that's something this source does really well. It highlights how sensory overload is not just about disliking loud noises. For someone with ASD, it can be completely disorienting. Their sensory input is just on a different level.
And that makes me think about educators. Based on this source, what are some practical steps teachers can take to make classrooms more sensory friendly, especially for students like Hunter?
Well, the source actually offers some great suggestions. Things like setting up quiet corners in the classroom, maybe dimming the lights when possible, or even providing noise-canceling headphones for students who need them.
All really simple but effective.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable and able to learn.
Absolutely. And it's not just the physical environment, right? Because the source also talks about Hunter's struggles with communication, which we know is a common challenge for people with ASD. Even something like singing in music class, which many kids love, felt impossible for him. And this leads to another really important aspect that the source dives into: individualized education programs, or IEPs. I think it would be helpful for our listeners if we could unpack that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The source emphasizes how crucial IEPs are for children with ASD. It stresses that these programs aren't just paperwork. They're about recognizing that each child is unique, with their own strengths and challenges.
So it's about creating a tailored learning experience.
Exactly. So for Hunter, his IEP might include visual aids to help him communicate more effectively, or schedule breaks throughout the day to help him manage sensory overload.
It's about giving them the tools and support they need to thrive, basically. And it's not just about the child, right? Because the source doesn't shy away from showing how Hunter's ASD affects his entire family. We see the strain it puts on his parents, the arguments, the exhaustion. It's a lot. How can schools, according to the source, offer better support not just to the child with ASD, but also to their families?
This source really advocates for schools to foster open and consistent communication with parents. Regular check-ins, updates on the child's progress, even workshops where parents can connect with each other and share their experiences. These can make a huge difference.
It's about building a sense of community so families don't feel so alone in this.
Exactly. And I love how the source ends on a really practical note with tips on how to be a good friend to someone with autism. It emphasizes the importance of clear communication and patience. What's the one thing you hope people take away from that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me, it's the reminder that people with ASD might not pick up on the same social cues that neurotypical people do. So being direct, being clear in your communication, and being willing to adapt your style a bit can go a long way. This deep dive has been so eye-opening. Through Hunter's story, we really get this intimate look at the world of ASD, especially in the context of education.
It really underscores the need for understanding, empathy, and those customized support systems like IEPs that can make a world of difference for individuals with ASD and their families.
And if I can just add, it reminds us that this is just one story, one perspective on a very broad spectrum. So if our listeners are interested in learning more, I encourage them to seek out other voices, other experiences, because everyone's journey with ASD is unique.
Absolutely. The more we learn, the more we understand, the better equipped we are to create a more inclusive and supportive world for everyone. And hey, if you're thinking, I need this book in my life, you can find Say It Now with Self-Love Kids LLC website.